I have a guy who's a mentor in my life. He's an agent. He's doing it for a workhorse. So he did what I did for twice as long. That 150, 200 homes a year, just pounding it out. But he's in his 60s now. Worth a lot of money. Net worth wise, he makes a lot of money residually. And he's going through a transition that I went through, but I'm 20 years younger than him. So now he's asking me questions about it, which is interesting. Like, what is your schedule like? Is that weird that like you aren't doing those regimented activities, you know, whatever? What is interesting is I talked to him about like spending with a joyful heart. That is a biblical thing, or giving with a joyful heart. Because not only will you do that, but you also give a bunch of money away simultaneously.
That freaks Celia out.
I understand how it freaks her out, because when you first told me that you did that, it freaked me out, and I'm not even close to you or married to you.
There's a family that struggles financially, and they go to our school. I'm like, we should give her like $5,000.
And you just do it. That's the joyful heart thing. And what he told me, what Neil said, which was interesting, is that even though money's been such a defining thing in his life, he told me like in 2020, when he recognized that like everybody was like having a hard time, he started automatically tipping like 20% more than what he normally would. He started automatically like giving, and he's like, and it's what's interesting is I heard this said in a biblical context. It's the only place where God says to challenge him. The only one. Everywhere else, he's like, don't challenge me. But on giving part, he's like, just challenge me. But you embody that. I feel like I know
I'll give like a 100% tip.
You will, right? Freaking out, right? But you really are.
This $100 means way more than that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's true about it is your identity is not wrapped into it, and it doesn't have any control over you. A lot less than most. I'm sure it controls a little bit, like you sometimes think about it, but like you're like, that's like of the world type stuff, and you have it, so like.
But having the overhead too, I mean, I have a pretty big overhead with the coaching.
You do?
You know, because I haven't cracked the code on organic.
On what?
Organic.
Oh, traffic. So you have to spend money.
Yeah. So I'm spending $20,000 a month on this.
Wow. Are you really?
Some months 30. It sucks now with the election.
Because you're paying so much for the ads.
Yeah, because I'm competing against
and Harris, yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, because I feel like the island shrinking in a way where we are in the cycle of real estate. Less people are participating, 3.8 million deals, which Leo said it's the lowest it's been in 15 years. But I think that joyful heart thing is interesting. And I'm increasingly like moving in that direction. It takes time to not idolize it. Because I think if I'm being authentic, is like in the past, like I idolized it. And I gave it way more power than it has. You know what I mean? Like the question is like from that book, Not a Fan. He's like, what do you get excited about? When things aren't working out, where do you go? You know what I would do if my business, like if I took less listings in a week than whatever, I'd look at money I'd go there to give me rest. It's like, it's the wrong place, bro. It's not the right, you're looking in the wrong place.
Do you have any quality of life sort of things that you do, like do you hire maid or
we got someone that comes in. That's the easiest dream.
It makes total sense to do it.
We have someone come in for 5 hours 3 times a week.
You do now?
And I can hardly wear I can only wear 2 pairs of underwear, 3 max, because they're cleaned like I'm right in. Yeah. And the ones I like are right on top.
Right on top. It's the only ones you wear anyway. It's like magic. Yeah. I think it's an issue of time. It goes back to that.
Well, we pay our girl $20 an hour.
Yeah. Well, and I told Carla, because we have somebody who comes in and if at first it was like frequency, and it's really me because I was like being small about it. I'm like, all right, we'll have them come like every other week. I understand how it can make you feel like in control perhaps, or like needed. Like that's not your highest and best use, dude. Well, and then Carla, she would come to me, and this is interesting for those who have significant others, but like, she would come to me and be like, hey, like, and I'm working and I'm doing all this stuff. She's like, well, I need your help with this stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not saying like I'm above that, but it's definitely not my highest and best use. I have a very particular set of skills that allows me to do like a lot in an area. Well, here's what I told her. I'm going to now have somebody come frequently and I don't want to hear about it anymore. And that solved the problem. He's like, first and foremost, to get to 100, it's going to come from listings, period, end of story. Second of all, and this is going to be real complicated, I need you to take notes. I'm like, all right. He's like, you got to wake up at the same time every day. He's like, get to the same time every day to the office. Pick up the phone at the same time every day. Do that for 3 hours a day. You will be a smashing success in this business. Because when you look at the numbers that Leo said, 76% of agents up until June of 2024 hadn't sold one of their own listings. That means 20-something% of the population is listing all the properties, which is where all the leverage is. And only 1.4% of all agents had done more than 30 transactions a year. That's bananas, bro. That's it. More than 30. So it shows the anomaly of doing 100, 150, 60, whatever it is. Like, you know, you might be doing 60 and think like, oh man, because you're looking at people doing 100. I'm like, dude, only 1.4% of the whole population of agents does more than 30 transactions a year. Is there's a difference between being competitive and being ambitious. So competitive is about comparison. That's fascinating.
Competitive about what?
Is about comparing, right? So part of the reason why you're like, oh, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
You're competitive. So what were you doing? Comparing to other people. What ambitious is where I have a love of learning. So he gave an example that in a Netflix documentary, they showed quarterbacks. They showed Kirk Cousins, Marcus Mariota, and Mahomes. Kirk Cousins is extremely competitive, right? The thing about competitors is that oftentimes what they'll do, like Kirk Cousins will have 2 really awesome games and then a really poor game, right? And Kirk Cousins hasn't won any rings, by the way. And they did in the documentary where they showed where Kirk Cousins, he has like a room of me, like his trophy room. And he pulled out like something his high school coach said about him. And he read it and he's like, yeah, that's still me. That's interesting. He hadn't changed and evolved at all. He's just, but he's competitive. Where Mahomes is ambitious. Mahomes is like, he's making up throws, bro. He's throwing sideways. He's like left on. He's like, and he's constantly evolving. What's interesting is when you watch them play, who has more fun? Way more fun. Who has more rings? 3 and counting. So when I looked at that, I was like, oh, so when you first met me, I was more competitive, yes?
Yeah.
And what have I become? More ambitious, yes?
I remember when we sat down,
Yeah.
I remember the number, but you were like, oh yeah, I'll be fine if I get to this number. Like you 10x that shit already.
Right. So, but now what's happening is because of that ambition, I'm having way more fun. So I think the sweet spot is a mixture of like competitive without comparing, perhaps as much comparing, where you're playing your own game. I'm just competing against like maybe myself or my own metrics, where maybe the game changes to time. How much time could I save instead of like how much money can I make? And it's independent of what other people think or do. But then being more heavily weighted towards ambition, which is a love of learning. And I think in doing that, like I was telling Natalie, she's like, I think it's crazy that like they asked you to be on a panel to talk about media. Because I would just hammer people on how silly that was or dumb it was. But what I told her is like, huh?
She was saying,
yeah. She's like, I think it's crazy that you're on that panel. And what I told her is that like, I take the responsibility. Like Carla tells me in our family life, she's a very strong, aggressive female. She's like, I have no problem with you leading, but you have to lead. Right? So, and sometimes I don't like that because it puts pressure on me, but it forces me to do it. Right? Well, what I told her is like, not only am I a leader in my family, but like to all the people who've decided to partner with us, it's a really big responsibility to lead. So I need to be ruthlessly, constantly in pursuing the truth. And what is true, learning it so I can give it back to other people. But that's that ambitious piece. And now I'm no longer competing with Brian and feel the need to compete with him, where now it's more like equipping him with all the tools that you need. Isn't that an interesting distinction? Because my life was like way smaller when I was purely competitive. And I was like, rah, but it was more, my impact was way more. It's just selfish.
What changed for you to see that though?
I think, to Lars's point, part of it is reaching, like, let's say you had a mountain off in the distance and you hit the mountain, but then it's not really like fulfilling. as you thought it would. A perfect example of this would be like I did a triathlon with Carla. It was a while ago. And we trained for a long time. It's like this whole thing. And I had two observations when I came across the finish line. The first, there's a picture of me coming across the finish line with Carla. I'm like this. Everybody that's lining up along the finish line is looking in the other direction because they're looking for their person. So that was like this interesting awareness. Like, oh, nobody cares. This, like, literally nobody cares. The second thing that was super aware to me was that when I crossed the finish line, nothing happened. Like, no, like, balloons dropped. Nobody treated me differently. I had the same experience where I had a financial goal in my life to hit like a net worth of like like $1 million. But when I hit it, nothing changed. The guy still flipped me off when he crossed. Like if I, pull up in the road, nobody gives me preferential treatment at Starbucks. They're like, bro, you're cutting me. Like, get out of the way. So it becomes this weird thing where you realize like these things that like the world tells you to pursue competitively actually don't really mean that much. So we live in an economic planet where I want to make sure that I can provide for my, like it says in the Bible, a man who does not provide for his own, specifically those in his house, is worse than an infidel. It's worse than an unbeliever. Like that's my command, right?
Really says that?
Yeah, absolutely says that. And it says a good man, ready, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. That's like a command. That's not like a, oh, if you want to. That's like an instruction. Like, I want to get my orders from headquarters, not from like here. You know what I'm saying? So I think, and when it goes back into a bit, it's a long way to answer your question, but the first two sins were not in the world. It was actually in heaven, where there were three archangels. One of them was Lucifer, who was the angel of worship. And he was beautiful. He was the most beautiful thing on the planet. Like a beautiful thing in heaven. Shimmered. Well, he got a glimpse of himself. And the first sin was born. Do you know what it is? Pride. What is competition? Pride. Look at me. Yes? What that led to is the second sin. Because once he was like, look how beautiful I am. Pride was born. The second sin that was born was rebellion against God. Because he started to be like, yo, why are we listening to this guy? Yeah, so that's why it's interesting because, on our calls, that's why I push you so much.
Yeah.
Because it's a command from God, bro. It's not like whether what I want to do.
I've never heard it that way. I know about the providing for in a command. It's just what is the intention?
We talked about that.
That's what I'm like.
Yeah, we're business owners.
Yeah.
We all own, like, as you start to do deals, you own stock. Like, this is like a group of owners getting together. That's badass, right?
Badass. Really cool.
So is your focus going to be like production? Is it attraction or is it both?
I'm definitely going to stay in my lane for sure.
Yeah.
Taking listings.
Yeah, doing your thing.
That's what I do. But I appreciate the opportunity here that it allows me to also do that alongside of it without taking away. Like at KW, like if you really want to recruit agents, like you're recruiting agents. Like that's what you do.
Yeah.
Like I have no interest.
Yeah.
But if I can attract agents and we can start doing the social media,
which you can
start doing things and that's alongside of it.
Yep.
That's sweet.
And then
this provides
the opportunity
to do that.
And you have
prime example.
Yes.
Prime example.
And then you have an operational partner in that EXP handles all of the brokerage component.
Right.
And then you dump them into our ecosystem and I'll train them.
Yes.
And Jose and Lars.
Remember when we were on the call? I'm like, bro, we got Aaron, dude. Like we're good.
Well, and and I love
we're good, bro. We got Aaron, dude. Like if you could track an agent, you're like, okay, go talk to Aaron. Like,
yeah, we're good.
There's no way this man, whoever that agent is not dealing with Aaron.
Yeah, exactly. And what I tell our organization is like, I heard this analogy and I love it. Is let's say we were on like a special forces team. We're getting dropped into enemy territory.
Yeah.
We're on an op, right? But we get separated. And you're by yourself in the dark behind enemy lines. Your gear gets scattered.
Right.
And you see somebody coming up over the hill. You're going to have two responses to that. One response is you're going to be like, oh man, it's that guy. Right. The second response is you're gonna be like, fuck yeah, it's that guy, bro. Hey,
yo,
I am gonna be okay.
You heard me say that on the call.
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, we're good.
We had a private mastermind with Leo Perea, the CEO.
Yeah.
Because Leo wanted him to like, hey, I'm coming. Bro, there were hearts breaking all over town. You know what I'm saying? And what I told Jeff is the first guy I was with selling real estate. He was a small little like aggressive kind of agent. He was one of the top agents in town.
Yeah.
And when we would leave a listing appointment, he would be like, "There's gonna be hearts breaking all over Gainesville tonight." Do I know, like, and trust Chris? Has he added value to me and showed me that he can help me by helping me for free? And then what ends up happening is people start to think to themselves, oh, if he helped me this much for